Are you tired of not having the financial information that you need to effectively run your agency? Are you tired of having to reach out to your accountant or CPA every single time you need a metric or some sort of a financial figure run for you? If that's the case, hang out with me for just a couple minutes and I'm going to show you how we have solved that problem. My name is Chris Hervishon, and what you see on the screen here is our advanced financial reporting package. And the way that this is laid out is exactly the same way that we have conversations with our clients. So if you've ever wondered, hey, why is my P&L positive, but my bank account isn't nearly as positive as it should be or as I would expect it to be, well, we can answer the question here with these first two tabs. The first tab here is the cash flow statement. The cash flow statement is it's an analysis of your cash flow from operations, so the underlying operations of the business, cash flow from investing, so investments that are made in the business or investments that the business makes, those would be cash outflows, and then also cash flow from financing. Think of that as loans. We always want to look at information, especially financial information, in at least two ways. And here, what you're going to see is, for the hardcore number-focused people on the left, we've got the cash flow statement. It's just a straight standardized cash flow statement. It's basically numbers on a page, okay? What we see on the right is the same thing, but in graphical format. It just makes it a little bit easier. And at the top here, you can see we can toggle this by month. We can toggle it by year. We can see this information any way that you need to be able to see that information. And then when we tie that into the second tab here, which is the profit and loss statement, that's how we can bridge that gap. Why is my cash not positive, but my P&L is, or vice versa, or whatever it is? This is how we answer those two questions with these first two tabs here. In particular, on the profit and loss statement, on the left, again, what we see is the straight numbers on a page. Top right, what we see is a narrative of what's on the page. So if you do better with the written word, we've got that for you. And then if you look on the bottom, mid to bottom, and then the very bottom, we've got the same thing in graphical format. On the very bottom, we've got revenue and ABR. ABR is a very important metric for agencies to be measuring. It shows how efficient you are with earning your revenue. And so that's one thing that we like to track against revenue. Now, in the next tab, what we have here, balance sheet. This is your statement of financial condition. This will tell you, how much cash you have in the bank, how much money you owe, what your balance in fixed assets is, things like that. Pretty standard stuff. On the next tab is really where we get into the meat and potatoes of the analysis. And now that we've kind of set the stage as far as, well, here's where the cash flow is, here's how much we've made, here's what our financial position is, what next? Well, that brings us to this tab. On the top right, I'm going to work from right to left, what you see is customer concentration. And for this particular client up here at top right, you'll see that this trolley manufacturing company, they're $654,000 from January 1st through December 2nd, and that is roughly 13.15% of the total agency revenue. That's pretty good. And then you can see there's a ton of different colors here, which means that there's a ton of different clients. Where we run into problems is if there's one client who takes up half of the pie or a third of the pie. And why is that a problem? It's because if they leave your agency, you're going to be almost out of business. We've got ABR over here to the left that'll show ABR by product, by service, by client. We can get it down to the most granular level that you can think of. The entire goal here is what kind of questions do you have about your agency and how do we answer those so that you can make effective decisions going forward. And then again, we see all of the data down here to the bottom left. It's just straight data if you need to know the detail that goes into all of these numbers. And then bottom right, what we see is revenue by month and year. Again, this is just year to date for 2020. So you can see, in a really clear graphical way, how much revenue has been created throughout the course of the year, and where it's light, where it's heavy, things like that. And then finally, the last tab, this is our cash analysis. And on the left, we've got a survey of how you are feeling about the business itself that tells us how many months of cash that we need in the business. We can toggle this. We can run different scenarios. Based on this scenario, we need 3.63 months of cash in the business. On average, our fixed expenses are 180K. That means the cash reserve needed is 653K. And then this white line here in the middle tells us what our cash reserve is. It changes over time. And the gray bars show us how we're doing against that cash reserve. On the bottom, we've got operating cash flow, working capital, the number of cash conversion days, how long it takes to get cash into the business, and our days liquidity available. So this is a super quick, super high level run through the financial reporting package. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't